Right behind me is Tokyo, and right in front of me is the entire world, the entire future. I talk to Alex Van Halen every single morning right here, and this is what I call the office here. At 3 in the morning, this is perfect because I'm a little hyperactive, and I wake up at 3 in the morning no matter where I am anywheres, and now I no longer have to stare at the fucking ceiling and wonder what's going to happen for the next 4 hours while the rest of the world catches up. Now I can just call back to Pasadena, California. I can call to New York City and anywhere, and we got something to do. I spoke to Al. I says, we could do one of these remixes. You know what I do when the recreational time is happening. I love playing ball. You know I love hard rock, always have. But I play ball for a living. And what do you think rock and rollers do after the rock show's over? We don't go to another rock show. You go somewhere where the girls are tall and skinny and they got their legs all the way up to their armpits and $180 worth of whatever it is they wear on their eyes. And man, it's 130 beats a minute, just like Jump. Just like most of the Van Halen material is what I call really girl positive, girl friendly. And you should be able to dance with a glass in your hand up to the speed where it's just about to spill, and then you change the hand and it still doesn't spill. And that's no coincidence, that's no accident that all the classic VH material, whether it's Jump, Really Got Me, Jamie's Crying, Dance the Night Away, Dancing in the Streets, hey, there's that word again. Everybody who's been following me for years and years knows at least the size of my backstage stereo. That sounds a little bit off color, probably intentionally. We got Roth over here behind the cameras. He made it to Japan as well. Say hello, Mark.
Hello.
And we came here, and I go to all the dance clubs, nightclubs, etc., listening to the J-Wave and all the different radio stations, and it's just off the hook, etc. Well, the rice ain't good without a little spice in it to tune it up. And I said to Al, we should do a remix. Jump is one of those classic tunes that, having been schooled professionally and in very old school, for me, Russian style, for the Van Halens, European style in general. They learned piano. I learned to do brass starting in the very early 60s. And my mentors in that were Peter and Pearl Zukovsky, who were first and second chair in the clarinet in the LA Philharmonic. I learned very early on that there's dogmatic principle, and then there is improvisation, because the lives and worlds around us change. And as an artist, I think our only real responsibility is to reflect the world around us evenly, to reflect it authentically, honestly. My dear departed chess coach, Mr. Gufeld, was the Soviet Socialist Republic's, Russia's master chess coach for the national team during the Cold War in the 70s. And in those days, if your team lost, you went to Siberia, literally. And he used to say, chess is gymnastics for brain, must improve, follow principle, then improvement. Principle improvement. I'm told that's eerily accurate to the way he discussed. And if you didn't improve, if you didn't sort of try and change a little bit, add something to your game, then you got your ass whipped. And instead of spending 2 weeks a year in Cuba getting a suntan, spent the rest of your life in the gulag digging holes in a salt mine. These words were well heated, as well as the words and the story that I just saw the other night, and that I just saw this the other night on the eve of releasing the Jump Dance remix, was the story of Bob Dylan, whatever, Don't Look Back or whatever, by Scorsese. Well, it was Uncle Manny, my dear Uncle Manny, who is now currently back in the hospital. Let me just say a little shout out there that he's not doing too well, so cards and letters are well in order as well. But it was Manny who gave Bob Dylan his first job. The first job was one voice and one guitar, which is kind of how VH started. Lead, bass, and drums, amazing vocals, as good a lyric as you could possibly bolt together. Not just Moon in June, but let's really try and take it past perhaps where we found it. And in the middle of the movie, possibly the crux move, like on any rock climb, the most difficult part is the crux move. The crux move for Bob Dylan was when he picked up an electric guitar. Just infuriated everybody, and it was the Judas concert. I think in Manchester, England, somebody yelled Judas, and they had placards and demonstrations, etc. And cut to today, how often do you hear Bob on one guitar with one voice? not too often compared to all those great songs with all those great instrumental values, instrumentations in the background. I'm jumping around here because I'm explaining some of my influences. Probably the two biggest influences for me, both musically and socially, are Batman and Elton John. Let's start with musical. Batman does not look like he does today that he did back when, not even on the last movie, much less 10 years ago. If you like the classic, that's there forever, especially now that we have the internet. You can dial back and you go all the way back to the classic times from the 1940s or whatever. If that's the Batman you like, marvelous. It's there forever, as is the way Van Halen plays on stage and always will. We're like the McDonald's French fry. One idea, build empire. Oh, there's Mr. Goofeld again. And you never want the McDonald's French fry to change. I'm the first one who get pissed if you change the McDonald's French fry. It should taste the same that way forever and ever. You should be able to pass that on to your grandchildren. Not the cholesterol, but the taste of the French fry. And there are several different kinds of cooks, several different kinds of chefs. There's the granddaddy who's been making the Italian spaghetti once a month for the family get-together the exact same way for 62 years. And it hasn't changed, and it's a secret recipe. And you go back, and that's the taste of love. That's the taste of family. That's the taste of history. Then there's the kind of chef who, like one of the Sherpas that I went climbing with in the Himalayas, Wanchu, actually spelled his name 4 different ways. I saw it on the climbing permit, I saw it on the work visa, I saw it on the carnet when we had to get on an airplane, even spelled his name 4 different ways. And he could take chicken wire, some spit, and some gravel and make pancakes in 4 different languages. Don't ask. But he could do it. He had been working with all the different climbing expeditions, and hey, Israeli pancakes, that's potato. Swedish pancakes, that's a lot sweeter, and on and on. I learned that you need to be able to address both. And with that in mind, with sword in one hand, torch in the other, I marched down to the beach and said, let's get involved in what's happening, at least for me, recreational behind the scenes. Anybody who's tuned in on the internet, and I recommend it, 50 rides on the love train. I'm not dancing to Black Sabbath, and I love Black Sabbath. I'm definitely going to the show when they play here in Japan this May. It's May or June, and I'm definitely going to go see that show. But we want to change a little bit. We want to add something there. So let's do a remix. Ed redid the keyboard at, I think it was 128 beats a minute. The original song was 130. Finally, I thought, you know what? If this causes some controversy, let's not drag everybody into it. You know me, I'm fireproof. Nothing drowns me out. I'm mutiny on the high seas. And being the Toastmaster General of the immoral majority, what could possibly be more rock and roll than to shake the tree and get all the birds and the bees making noise and hopping? Van Halen did that. When we first showed up, it was disco and Saturday Night Fever on one side, and it was the Sex Pistols and the Clash on the other, and I showed up looking like Tarzan. You remember what I looked like. I don't think I buttoned my shirt for 6 years in a row. I infuriated everybody, especially the writers who looked like Elvis Costello. That's why they loved Elvis Costello. That was one of my favorite quotes, and I got both the writers and Elvis to hate me. I laugh now. I call these harmless rock star misdemeanors. No, I don't think that you want to change any particular song like Jump or any particular French fry like McDonald's. But if there's a variation available, oh yeah. If nothing else, it'll make us appreciate the original. You don't change Michelangelo's statue of David, but if on the internet you want to clip my happy smiling face out and make fun of it and put it on the statue, I'm all for that. Celebration is what has remained immutable. That's dogma here. And that's been that way for me ever since. Why all the dancing around? Why all the hyperactive? Yeah, it's pretty simple now that I'm old enough to look into the rearview mirror and say what's really there. When I was very, very young, starting when I was born, I had to wear braces on my legs. And, I had severe, whatever they call it, pronation, etc. One of my close blood relatives had to wear cable braces like Forrest Gump, exact same kind of thing. And I was plopped down in front of the television while my dad was in medical school for many, what seemed like a million years. The television was my babysitter. And whether it was watching whatever Lola wants, Lola gets in Damn Yankees, or if I only had a brain coming out of Wizard of Oz, watching Fred Astaire and a whole list of gorgeous dames swirling and everything. When I got out of those shoes, man, I didn't sit down again. There's no magic to why I'm always moving and grooving and doing it. I'm a product of integrational busing. They didn't test integrational busing in Alabama. They tested it in Pasadena, California. And I was in the very first bus that headed over there. It was all black and Spanish speaking. Today, yo hablo suficiente español para hablar contigo solamente de lengua. I speak enough to get us completely in trouble halfway out. I own a lowrider, and I can gang sign the entire Mickey Mouse Club. MICKEYY. This is why. And it comes natural. It's authentic. It didn't occur to me, or I was unaware rather, that Elton John had just taken his entire greatest hits catalog and had it remixed. Coming back from the tattoo session downtown Shibuya here in Tokyo, which is like south of 14th Street, sort of a kind of a neighborhood, we heard on the radio it was Rocket Man. What was the name of the fella, Mark? That KDME remixed Rocket Man with a groove behind it. It's no longer just a solemn ballad. It's an upbeat ballad. In fact, that's what you might even call it. Something brand new. I think, give me a little taste of that. And we can serve it on the side as a special little something. No, we're not going to change the French fry. But wow. I contacted a couple of fellas named WhiteNoize, two boys from San Francisco who are all over the Floor Nation. That's from Ibiza to Florida to New York City, Abu Dhabi, Naples, Maples, and everywhere else that's really hard to pronounce, every $5 word somewhere in Europe. And I said, fellas, have at it. Do what you want to do. WhiteNoize is a DJ team who not only spins records, but they create tracks. And I heard them do a track with my, again, dear departed friend, Dan Hartman, who wrote Instant Replay. He was part of the Edgar Winter band, whatever, during the time of Frankenstein. And he was part of Hanging Around and all those classic tunes. He went on to do some of the most famous Floor tunes ever. Probably the latest one you might remember is Living in America that James Brown did in one of the Rocky movies. And I was going to do an album with him before he passed on, stepped on to the other side. That being said, the two fellas, WhiteNoize, I contacted them and said, fellas, I'm aware of your material. I subscribe to a website called Beatportal, and this is where all the new faces and some of the little older ones are exchanging files for their DJ tracks. This is the internet. This is the back and forth of, hey, let me see your ideas. You can look over each other's shoulder in 182 languages and say, hey, where'd you get those shoes? Wow, where'd you get that beat? I love that. In terms of, well, are they taking music from the record companies or whatever? Like the record companies are sacred. I tell you what, record company never treated me sacred. You buy a $10 record from Van Halen, I make 6 cents. That's on the first 2 records. The producer makes more than I do on that. Oh, wait a minute, let's be legit, let's be supportive. On the remaining Van Halen records, I make 8 cents. There you go. 8 cents out of a $10 record. So in terms of file sharing and so forth, I have mixed feelings, very mixed feelings. And I love the internet. You can hide in the dark, and you can be critical, and you can be, you can be like a theater critic. You can be a movie critic, and you don't have to worry about somebody going boo or yay to you. And I love that. That's always what's been going on in our heads. Maybe you share it with your friends on the car, on the way to the bar or the local cantina, but now we can do it with others. And I love that. Encourage that. That being said, the fellas, the WhiteNoize boys, put together a killer track using just the simple record of Jump. Ed, again, had done a great keyboard track, and I thought, you know what? Instead of really trying to revise, like, wow, now I have a cowboy hat and I'm an astronaut instead of a singer. We all know folks who've tried that, and that's not me. Anybody who says I am now this, instead of that, is more that than ever before. Woo, little Buddhism there. A little barroom Buddhism. That being said, I encourage others to grab some of this material and see what you can do with it, because it won't just survive, it will thrive. Nobody takes Beethoven and plays it identically to the way it was originally done. In fact, who even knows how it was originally done? I went and saw opera. I call it popra now. It was the Magic Flute or whatever, and God help me, but the main character, the woodsman, was wearing a backwards baseball hat with a catcher's mask. Yes. And if nothing else, it causes you to wake up, boom, and treasure the original, if nothing else. If we begin to really understand why we originally loved something, and perhaps we add a little to the future. I want to be part of what's happening now. Young and skinny energy. We don't lose any of the past. The past is what paid for the baseball hat. I got to have the jacket back by 6. So that being said, guys, put your guns down. Let's move the tables back and fucking celebrate.
Might as well jump. Go ahead and jump. Might as well jump.
Thought, what if we did a Broadway thing, like for Van Halen or any story of any rock band, anybody who finds their way in the fine arts. You go to the city, and whether you're going to be an architect, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a painter, a dancer, an author, a poet, anything like that. I wrote a record's worth of material with my dear friend John Five. In fact, we finished the record, and it's called Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bar and Grill. And I thought, if we're going to do a Broadway, what do you call it, jukebox musical or something like that, what are you going to do? Are you going to hire a rock band to imitate the VH sound? That's going to be a little bit tough, because we're not a band like the Four Seasons or, geez, who else had some of this material? ABBA, whatever. Those songs translate just as they are onto the stage. But how are you going to take hard rock and revise it into a number of ways that you can do a 2-hour program, etc.? All right, well, Jump is a classic song that was written by professionally trained classic musicians, myself and the Van Halen brothers. So you can give it different shoes and haircut, and people have routinely over the ages. Aztec Camera did it with some acoustic guitars. I've heard 3 different big band renditions, and then somebody took John Lennon's vocal from Imagine and he took the vocals of Jump, rather, and placed it against Imagine, the music that came for that. And check it out. You just surf it and you can find it. It's a glorious sound. That being said, well-written music can really do that, provide us with that kind of newness without losing the original. When we did, for example, Dancing in the Street, arguably one of the best Motown tunes ever created, then no, we didn't steal any kind of color or thunder from Motown, and the Motown version is still the one that I always put on somewhere around midnight when people take their shoes off and start sock hopping. That's the version that I'm going to put up there. And I don't think Barry Gordy or any of the gang flexed out when we did Dancing in the Street with a 3-piece arrangement. Oh, and a keyboard. Wait a minute. Keyboard. What do I remember there? Because when we originally do Jump, Everybody had a heart attack. The heavy metal gang just about committed ritual suicide when Eddie Van Halen stepped up with that keyboard sound, which is now an actual patch on whatever the style of keyboard. It's the jump patch. It says jump right there, and you hit it, and now it's as acceptable as Bob Dylan with an electric guitar. A lot of people don't even know Bob played folk music, and when folk music showed up, according to dear old Uncle Manny, that upset everybody. Uncle Manny was also employing Neil Diamond. You know Neil Diamond, for example, the pop singer, and that kind of music was being played in the Cafe Wha in the early 60s. And when Bobby Zimmerman became Bob Dylan and showed up downtown there, I think in 1960, 1961, the idea of one voice, the Woody Guthrie approach, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Dave Van Ronk, these names, this kind of music was eerie, it was frightening, it was called protest music, and the protest was mostly coming from the general public. So, I don't know, maybe you gotta shake the tree a little bit. You got to shake the tree if you're going to try and put something on the theater stage. Why not take all those versions, I thought, and Alex and I discussed it right here on this same balcony in the land of the gods, and take it and give it 5 different shoes and haircuts, update it, give it different neighborhoods, not so much time frames, but it can be done big band style, it can be done heavy metal style, it can be done folk style, it can be made into a very, very quiet, sad ballad. If you think about it, it's sort of like just a gigolo, and everywhere I go, people know the part I'm playing. That originally started off as a ballad, and you turn it up into something resultant that you transcend that shit. With one sword in one hand and a torch in the other, you defeat those blues. And when you hear an audience singing, I ain't got nobody, it sounds like a celebration. That's the saddest lyric you could probably portend as a lyricist, but we turn it into something spectacular and resultant, a celebration of life, if nothing else. With Jump, here I am with my back against the record machine. It's sad, but you can do it as a ballad, sort of like Rocket Man, and you can turn it into the quintessential dance tune. Most dance floors that I've been on, whether they know I'm in the room or not, somewhere around 1 in the morning, they'll spin up Jump, add their own drums and bass to it, some really eloquently, some not so eloquently, and everybody's celebrating. A whole lot of folks who don't know, don't care, and never will who the original band was. The song has lasted forever. I have a Japanese tattoo of a crane on my ankle, and the reason that I keep that is because it's a symbol of longevity, particularly for artists here. And the expression is that long after the crane is lost from sight, you can still hear his call. Not all cranes sound the same.
Might as well jump. Everybody jump. Jump.
Alex and I agreed, wow, this is an opportunity with a number of our songs to show the different faces. It's kind of like looking under the hood and going, woo, you used a different exhaust system. That's a different blower than I thought you had under there. Is that an Iskandarian full race overhead cam? Wow, never expected that. Is that posit traction? Is that equal rubber all the way around? Is that viscous coupling? I've never seen that used in a race car like that. And Jump, as many of our songs do, have those kind of inner workings. We always laughed and said, well, we can't let people think we're too smart because nobody will want to talk to us. But that's the element that we always put into our songs and into our recording. In Japanese, it's Mikate ni yorazu tanjun, which means deceptively simple. I'm simple and probably not deceptively, but the music is perfectly part of that kind of thinking, or I hope that it is. When we finally got the remix together, I said, you know what, let me try and retool some of these vocals here. And having been living here in Japan, I don't know, roughly for the better part of the last year, their idea of music is like mixing everything from the kitchen into a basic dish, but giving it different flavors because they're not culturally tied down into a given neighborhood or a given race or a given style. It's this is an island, if nothing else, and it's not connected to anything else, so you can borrow freely from that. For example, every summer for 2 days there is a festival of, it's kind of hip hop dub. It's not trance, it's not house mix, it's not disco. It's much slower. It's kind of like hip hop, and there are 100 DJs, 50 of them per day, and this plays to roughly 40,000 people in the football stadium per day, and it's called J-Dub, not for Japanese, but Jamaican. You've got 100 Japanese disc jockeys who are all perfecting Jamaican accents. Half of them have dreadlocks, and they do it pretty convincingly. And I listened to that. I bought a handful of the records and thought, woo, I did a song like that once upon a time with a toaster. His name was Mitchellis, who lives up in the Bronx to this day. And Mitchell is, come to rhythm my selector, Dave. Well, selector means DJ. And did you know my mom was Jamaican? Well, she's not Jamaican, but close. She's Jewish. And Jewish says, try it all. Try everything in the kitchen, dude. And I can do a fairly convincing, no, not convincing, but fair version of Jamaican Dave. And I said, let's try this out. I'm not Japanese, but come to rhythm my selector, Dave. And, here we go. Put that on the track, and we've got something that nobody recognizes. A horse of a very different color. Uh-oh. This is designed to go onto the floor. And not just the dance floor, but the exercise floor, the gym floor, the mixed martial arts floor, because when you walk onto those floors, the practice floor for the ballet, etc., when you walk onto the judo floor, etc., the jiu-jitsu floor, the kinjitsu floor, and all these floors these days, if they're playing music, yeah, there's a smattering of classic rock, but most of it is and 120 beats a minute, because you got people who are sweating for a living, blue collar, in 45 different languages and many different pursuits. And maybe I thought, not only will this work on a Broadway stage as one of the versions of Jump, but this is something that now joins the future. Just as I can go hang out downtown in New York City or here in Shibuya on an artist visa. Maybe our song will fly with wings like that. And I think we've caused a pretty good controversy. Wow. Pop, this is your sense of humor, isn't it? That people are even paying attention to what I'm doing these days, much less creating controversy and getting upset and making noise. How very, very rock and roll.